in Russia's Stavropol region. The SBU security service confirmed that 2 facilities at the signal plant were damaged, halting production of critical military equipment. Ukraine continues to focus on drone attacks to weaken Russia's military capabilities. Meanwhile, this comes as Russia announced the seizure of 2 villages in central Ukraine, including one in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Despite the ongoing clashes, both sides continue heavy bombardments. We're once again joined by Ross Feingold. Ross, with Ukraine increasingly striking deep into Russia, but also, of course, with Russia claiming new territory, are we seeing the war enter a new phase, one defined by a long-range escalation and grinding ground advances?
When it comes to the long-range escalation, the reality is this is something that the European governments and the United States government, certainly under President Biden, have struggled with. What kind of green light to give Ukraine to strike targets deeper within Russia? And when President Trump came into office, there's been some change. There hasn't been as much of a green light as the Biden administration had given, although that seems to be changing a bit with the recent agreement that the United States would sell weapons to Europe, which would then gift them to Ukraine. But again, this is something that Ukraine's supporters have struggled with. Now, at the same time, Ukraine has been building up its own capability to manufacture drones and use those drones to hit deeper into Russia. And if it's Ukrainian manufactured drones, then they're not under the restrictions that would apply to weapons that Western European countries or the United States have gifted to Ukraine. But going forward, this is certainly going to be an issue that the Western governments continue to struggle with, what kind of green light to give to Ukraine. As far as the Russian advance in recent hours and the capture of additional Ukrainian towns, this is all about changing the facts on the ground for Russia going into any ceasefire talks. Russia wants to control as much Ukrainian territory as possible, and then in those talks, they're going to say to Ukraine, you have to take it or leave it. What we control on the ground as of the moment, that's where the ceasefire line will be. So Russia is heavily incentivized to take as much territory as possible in the coming days and weeks.
Ross, as this war drags on, how is the international appetite for supporting Ukraine evolving?
To be fair to the European countries, they've remained united on this issue for over 3 years. And the statements and the actions that they take, whether that's the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Poland, the actions they continue to take shows that they remain united on providing financial aid as well as military aid to Ukraine. Again, they're struggling with what the Trump administration's approach will be. There was pauses on weapons deliveries from the United States. There's the recent agreement for the U.S. to sell weapons to Europe, which would be gifted to Ukraine. But the U.S., under President Trump, is still reluctant to directly gift weapons to Ukraine. But again, when it comes to Europe, they remain united. And that's something that clearly Ukraine is relying on, that if they can't count on the Trump administration, at least for now, they're going to continue to count on Europe. And that has a heavy influence on Ukraine's approach in peace talks or ceasefire talks. And for now, Ukraine is continuing to take a very tough position in those negotiations.
Ross Feingold, absolute pleasure as always. We now move on to our next story, where Pope Leo has taken a new step towards bridging divides between the Vatican and the Russian Orthodox Church. He met with Metropolitan Antony, a senior Russian Orthodox cleric, along with 5 other high-ranking figures. The Vatican confirmed the meeting, but didn't give any details. The Pope has called for global peace and told Ukraine's President Zelensky that he's willing to host talks. However, Russia has dismissed the idea, saying the Vatican's location inside NATO-backed Italy makes it biased. Earlier this year, the Pope also urged Putin to seek an end to the war. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, has also strongly supported the invasion.